In today's video, we are going to be taking a massive look at the upcoming pattern around the nation as well as Tropical Storm Debby. Now, I've gotten so many comments that are like, this storm isn't going to be historic. This storm isn't going to be that bad. I got one that was like, the worst is already over, which was probably, no pun intended, the worst comment that I got. We expect catastrophic flooding throughout Georgia, South Carolina, potentially even for Florida and North Carolina as well. And that storm does not need to be a category 3, 4, 5 hurricane for that to happen. And we talked about this over the past couple of videos, but that's why it's really, really hard to get across information with the current category system that's out there. It doesn't really take into account other impacts besides just wind. And, there's many other components here to these major storms, including, in this case, major flooding that could happen, whether it's a tropical depression or a category 5 hurricane. There's probably been category 5 hurricanes that have led to less rainfall than this storm that we're seeing here. So definitely it can be very, very misleading as far as the other impacts that we're seeing from these storms. In this case, again, massive flooding, life-threatening flooding that is going to be catastrophic in many ways. Now, again, today's video is probably going to be the most centered around just the upcoming pattern in general that we've had since the beginning of talking about this storm. So we are trying to circle back, talk about the temperature anomalies. So many of you have been asking for that. We are bringing it back and going to be going over that, where we do have some cooler air, some warmer air on the way at times as we're beginning, believe it or not, to start to talk about transitioning into fall. We're almost there. We're on fall's doorstep, basically, and I cannot wait to talk about those things, as our average temperature is beginning to crest and decline now around most areas in the nation. Very interesting. Let's just take a look at this evening. We do have Tropical Storm Debby here over the southeast, again, beginning to bring some of the catastrophic rainfall to Georgia and South Carolina. There is a 997. It's moving at a snail's pace, which is most of the problem. It's extremely heavy rainfall for days on end with real no breaks, and that's just gonna really lead towards the totals of rainfall that we're expecting. It's going to be out of control. So we do see a couple of other areas of concern. We had 2 tornadoes in New York today, very random. We have storms firing up across a lot of your Midwest, Great Lakes, and the Northeast near New York, where we have some severe weather ongoing, evidently, as New York has had probably the most tornadic year of their entire history this year. Many tornadoes in New York, very interesting and just random. We do see across the Rockies, showers and thunderstorms are prevalent. We've seen this for a few days, and we do expect that to continue for the most part. Tuesday here on August 6th, we see that this storm, Debby, is now offshore of Georgia and South Carolina slightly. It's moved very, very slightly towards the east, and we're continuing to see very heavy rainfall battering Georgia and South Carolina, alongside some storm surge and some winds, by the way. I don't want to act like that's going to be a total non-factor. That will be present, just nowhere near the extent of which we're expecting to see flooding, which is going to be on the higher end of possibilities with tropical systems. Really, the most since I've seen since Hurricane Harvey, like I mentioned, in Texas. Catastrophic flooding in that case as well, obviously, and that was far worse than what we expect in this case, but it's certainly the most that I've seen since then. This time along that southeast coast, where we're beginning to get rainfall even for North Carolina and Virginia already by Tuesday. We expect flooding to stretch all the way into New England. So we'll look at the total precipitation in a little bit, but this is going to impact the entire eastern seaboard, unfortunately. We do expect thunderstorms to really continue for the Northeast here, as well as the Ohio Valley, even by Tuesday, August 6th. This should still be ongoing. We do see that for a lot of your Rockies. We still see showers and thunderstorms by tomorrow on Tuesday as well. Wednesday on August 7th, we continue to see this storm offshore, still bringing some precipitation to Georgia and South Carolina, although now Virginia and North Carolina, as well as kind of the Mid-Atlantic, are beginning to see a lot heavier precipitation, and the focus of this storm does spread northward by Wednesday. We do see these heavier thunderstorms beginning now for Montana and through a lot of the northern plains like the Dakotas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa there as well. Very, very interesting stuff. Let's take it towards Thursday on August 8th, and we see this curvature that we've been expecting for a long time, this re-entry into the southeast states between South Carolina and North Carolina there. This storm, very strong by this time, 985 in between South Carolina and North Carolina, continuing to bring heavy rainfall to a lot of South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, the mid-Atlantic here. We're getting battered by flooding rainfall. Some winds, definitely going to be a windy day for a lot of these impacted areas, and some storm surge cannot be ruled out. The Rockies and through a lot of your northern plains and upper Midwest are continuing to see some scattered about thunderstorms and showers. Keep that in mind as well, as that seems to be a pretty big factor by this point. Friday here on August 9th, what we're seeing is this storm is in between North Carolina and Virginia now, pretty far inland, and we're getting heavy rainfall here for the mid-Atlantic and even into the Northeast here, as there's just continuous impact still by Friday from this storm. So a whole week-long event. We're not really going to be able to escape it anytime soon. We do see that from the Pacific Northwest down through the Rockies and even into some of the plains. We are continuing to see this flow of thunderstorms and showers, as we do expect a wetter fall and winter for a lot of these areas. It is interesting to see this beginning so early in August, maybe a sign of things to come later on. The upper Midwest and Great Lakes, we do also have some storms in this area where we kind of also expect a lot of precipitation this fall and winter. Very interesting. Saturday here on August 10th. Now look at this. This storm is still a 997, kind of becoming a superstorm, which is a combination of a nor'easter type storm, tropical system, kind of combining. And this one moves up into New England, combining with another storm system and continuing to bring flooding rainfall as far northward as Maine and even into Canada, unfortunately. So again, stay tuned for the total precipitation, but they will be quite shocking. We do see that the Great Lakes are seeing some showers and thunderstorms prevailing by the weekend, Saturday here on the 10th in particular. And then for the Rockies in through some of the plains, we're continuing to also see the activity there. Sunday on August 11th, we are seeing quite a bit of thunderstorms and showers here for the Pacific Northwest, down through the Rockies, down through the plains, kind of what we've been talking about throughout this video, continuing. We do see that Debby is continuing to bring impacts for Canada especially, but even some of the northeastern states here as far into the upcoming pattern as Sunday, August 11th. So very far into the upcoming pattern. Monday here on the 12th, continuing to bring impacts to Canada there a week from today. We do see some thunderstorms here for a lot of your northwest into the Rockies still, and the plains and upper Midwest. I feel like a broken record, but that has just continued to be the case here through the upcoming pattern. Tuesday, a lot of the same. I would say it's mostly centered around your Pacific Northwest area, and then also some of your northern plains and Midwest regions also. The East Coast likely to have some thunderstorms around by the early next week time frame, as they tend to do throughout this time of year typically. Wednesday the 14th, we do see a little bit of an organized storm system moving towards the southeast. This could bring more rainfall where it's really not needed, so the rich get richer there in kind of a bad way in this case. The Rockies continuing to see showers and thunderstorms. Same story for the Northeast, where they also don't really need it by this point on Wednesday the 14th. Thursday the 15th, we only get to the morning here before the model run is said and done, but we do continue to see some showers and thunderstorms throughout the plains and Midwest and the Southeast in particular. Let's take a look here at the European AI model. Obviously, feel free to take a look, as we mentioned, for this tropical system Debby. Mostly I want to pay attention to our MDR here, which is short for Main Development Region, and this is in between Africa and the Caribbean, where a lot of our tropical systems originate. I'm going to be watching this area here for any of these systems to really take off and see where they go. So let's just track it together here. Debby does the same thing that it showed on the European model, so definitely looking like this has its full support. We do see a tropical system somewhere in here becoming a threat. Southern Gulf needs to watch out, some of the Southern Caribbean as well, and this will put the entire Gulf Coast at risk as well of seeing a tropical strike, as the National Hurricane Center has already increased this to a 30% chance of development. We'll see that later on in the video. Watch this area, though. We're going to continue to watch for development here. We see that we do kind of get a system here out of that main development region, moving out to sea, more of a threat to Bermuda than the East Coast on this particular model run. But really, if we do expect development in anywhere in here, we're going to be on high alert again for the eastern seaboards of Canada and the United States, unfortunately. As you know, we noticed in this model run, for instance, earlier we saw Debby was expected to be off the East Coast. If you watched a lot of our videos earlier on in the storm, it ended up being much further west here, impacting the west coast of Florida. So that's the same difference as if the model is showing it to be here. It could very, very easily be along the East Coast when we're looking at a long-range outlook. There's a lot of buffer for error here, and definitely these models can get that location quite off. The main takeaway here is that we do see some sort of development. The area does mean something, but definitely can change a lot. As of now, we see this model at hours 300 plus showing a system nearby Bermuda. We're definitely going to be watching the East Coast if we expect this system to prevail, because that is a close call when we're looking at 300 plus hours out. We do see that there is more disturbances coming off of Africa, and really as we're approaching the late August timeframe, we're going to be approaching the heart of the hurricane season, and we really are seeing the beginning of that phase where we're not really going to be able to stop talking about it. There's going to be continuous systems moving out of this area, unfortunately, that need to all really be watched. So we're just getting started, but it does look like there's a couple of systems here to watch as we reach into the mid to late portion of August. It's going to be really open season for tropical systems. The total precipitation here, we do see streaks of above average activity throughout portions of the Rockies, the Plains, the Midwest. Our primary focus is going to be on the east, of course, with that Storm Debby, unfortunately. The reds are 2 to 5 inches, which we basically see from Florida up through a lot of eastern Canada. We see it everywhere in between as well. Browns are scattered about at least from Florida to Maine. So we're seeing that for all of these areas being a possibility. Browns will be 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. So again, catastrophic flooding cannot be really overstated here. Again, worst of impacts are still to come, despite what I've been getting comments from people saying it was a category 1. Now it's down to a tropical storm, so the worst is over. The worst is definitely not over. This flooding is going to be the biggest single impact from this storm by far, and it could be unlike anything we've really seen in quite a long time along the eastern seaboard. So please, please, please pay attention, be prepared. This could be bad anywhere from Florida to Maine. Definitely a very bad situation. We even have blues here, which is indicative of 10 to 15 inches of precipitation for portions of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Even some pinks popping up, which is 15 to 20 inches. Definitely a whole lot expected. Now, the anomalies of these precipitation is obviously going to be very high along this east coast. Blue areas are going to be 2 to 5 inches above average over the next 15 days. Greens are anything above average, basically up to 2 inches. So we do see some of that for the Rockies and the Plains in the Midwest as well. We do have a pretty big dry pocket here, especially as we get our daily emojis there, especially across the deeper south areas. Some of the kind of four corner states, the South Central, and even into the deeper South Gulf states here, where we're even seeing 2 to 5 inches below average for some of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama as we reach a really, really dry spell here, which is very uncommon for this time of year. Now, as we move into the temperature anomalies here, we see we're in a warm-up. We do expect colder air to be on the way. This is going to be a nice brisk cool down. Could bring a lot of us into the lower 80s, upper 70s, maybe even lower 70s for some northern folks. This should be a nice relief from the summertime heat, and it should be a little bit of a sneak peek as to what September and early October could bring to a lot of folks, as we are very, very close. We're on fall's doorstep, as I mentioned earlier. We do have a positive PNA here, which I talked about a lot last year. This is really, really the driving force behind this cooler air moving southward here. Very common for this to cause these cool downs to move eastward, as we're seeing on screen. We really get left with some of that cold air all the way through the 15th of August. Could be a cooler pattern. Really a toss-up after that, though, as this European ensemble model has coast-to-coast warmth, which is common when it really has no idea what to expect. So definitely not really sure what to say there. We look at the satellite imagery here for Debby, and we see that it has some nice spin to it, some very tall clouds in there. Clearly still has a lot of tropical components. This heaviest band of rainfall is going to be in here, and this is moving kind of towards the northeast, and it will be continuing to impact Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, areas that are already getting hammered with rainfall here. We do see a lot of development happening off the southeast coast here of these states as well. As this storm is moving offshore again, we should see a lot of this rapid development over these very, very warm waters. So yes, it does look a little mild here over land, as most tropical systems do. It should redevelop a lot here offshore once it is moved offshore of the southeast. As we take a look here at the National Hurricane Center's cone forecast for this system, we see it is expected to remain at tropical storm status until 2 p.m. on Friday, where it should downgrade to a tropical depression before moving up northward towards the mid-Atlantic here. You can see we're really going to stall out, as that is already this weekend. So between Monday and Saturday, it's really only moving from Florida to Delaware. So very, very slow movement. It's only moving at 6 miles per hour currently. So this is really what's bringing a lot of that flooding. Speaking of the flooding here, here's the current forecast from the National Hurricane Center for precipitation. We see a lot of the lighter green areas seeing 1 to 2 inches expected. Darker green is going to be 2 to 4. Yellow is 4 to 6. Light orange there is 6 to 8. Dark orange is going to be 8 to 12. Light red, which is kind of like a cherry red there, 12 to 16 inches. Dark red there for a lot of South Carolina is going to be 16 to 20 inches. We even see some pinks being scattered about there near Charleston. That is 20 inches plus. So again, catastrophic flooding, especially in these oranges and reds, but even the yellows being 4 to 6 inches could really, really do a lot of damage in multiple different areas all the way up the East Coast. So really, really on high alert for that. Again, here's the National Hurricane Center 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook, and we do have this code yellow south of Debby, where we currently have a 10% chance of development over the next 2 days, but over the next 7, we do have a 30% chance here for the Southern Caribbean and Southern Gulf. Again, especially Texas, Louisiana should be on high alert, but this could really bring pose a threat to the entire Gulf Coast. We're going to be watching this one closely, and again, we do expect more on the way later on. So be sure to subscribe, as we do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.